You have noticed something, not dramatically, not in a way that announced itself with clarity or came with an explanation attached, but something, a sensitivity that was not there before, or perhaps was always there, but is suddenly more pronounced, more insistent, less easy to dismiss as not imagination. Foods that once felt fine now sitting differently in your body. Sleep patterns shifting, emotions moving through you faster and more intensely than they used to. Arriving without warning, departing without the usual residue. Dreams that feel less like dreams and more like visits to somewhere real. A physical restlessness that has nothing to do with anxiety, a buzzing, a warmth in the chest at unexpected moments, the sense that the body itself is doing something, processing something, reorganizing something that the conscious mind has not yet been given the full briefing on. You have noticed, and you have perhaps wondered whether something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Something is happening, and what is happening, though the world around you may not yet have the language for it, is one of the most extraordinary processes a human body has ever been asked to undergo. The body you inhabit is not simply a vehicle, not a container, not a machine that runs the biological processes of a life and nothing more. It is an instrument, extraordinarily sophisticated, extraordinarily responsive, built with a capacity for adaptation and evolution that conventional understanding has only barely begun to appreciate, and that the deepest accounts of human consciousness, accessed through the most rigorous exploration of what lies beneath the surface mind, have described in terms that make the biological picture look like a rough sketch of a far more intricate reality. Your body responds to frequency, to the vibrational quality of the environment it moves through, to the emotional and energetic states it inhabits, to the collective field of human consciousness it is embedded within, and to something larger than all of those, to the frequency of the earth itself, which is changing. This is not a new idea dressed in modern language. The ancient ones knew it. Every tradition that has ever looked clearly at the relationship between human consciousness and the living planet it inhabits has pointed toward cycles, vast, slow, cosmically determined cycles of elevation in which both the earth and the souls moving through it undergo a process of refinement that is less like improvement and more like remembering what they are at a higher frequency, returning to a quality of a vibration that the long descent into density had moved them away from. And the body, the extraordinary, sensitive, magnificently designed instrument of the soul's physical expression, does not simply witness this process, it participates in it. It changes at the level that matters most, not just the behavioral level, not just the psychological level, but at the deepest level of its physical architecture, the level of the DNA. If something in your body is already recognizing this, if the symptoms you have been experiencing suddenly feel less like problems and more like process, drop the word upgrading in the comments, not as a performance of spiritual understanding, as a genuine acknowledgement between you and the body that has been going through something real, something that deserves to be named and honored rather than worried about. And if this frequency is landing in a place that has been waiting for exactly this explanation, let that resonance be known, press-like, not for the algorithm. Because what you choose to amplify is what you call more of into your field. Long before you had this body, before this specific physical form was chosen and prepared for this specific incarnation at this specific extraordinary moment in the Earth's evolutionary cycle, the soul that you are understood something about the assignment it was accepting, that this life would not be ordinary, not in the sense of external drama necessarily, though for many of the souls who chose this time, the external life has carried its share of intensity, but in the sense of what would be asked of the physical instrument carrying the soul through it, because the souls who chose to be here at this particular juncture, the ones the deepest accounts of consciousness described as volunteers, as way showers, as the ones who raised their hands from the between-life realm and said yes to this specific assignment, did not simply agree to wake up. They agreed to be transformed in every dimension of their being, including the most physical one, including the DNA. What is happening in your body right now is not a malfunction. It is not a diagnosis waiting to be named. It is not the consequence of stress alone, or age alone, or any of the ordinary explanations the ordinary world reaches for when the body begins to behave in ways that do not fit the familiar categories. It is an upgrade, literal, real, happening at the most fundamental level of your physical existence. And understanding what it is and why it is happening now, to you in this specific season of your life and the world's life simultaneously, changes everything about how you move through it. There is something extraordinary happening at the level of human biology right now, not in the distant future, not as a theoretical possibility that scientists are cautiously gesturing toward from the safe distance of a hypothesis. Now, in bodies like yours, in the quiet interior of cells that the conscious mind never directly observes, but that are nevertheless responding with extraordinary sensitivity and extraordinary precision to something that conventional biology has not yet built a complete framework to describe. The framework is coming. The edges of it are already visible in the most courageous corners of biological research, in the emerging understanding of how profoundly the body responds to consciousness, to emotion, to the quality of the energetic field it inhabits, in the growing recognition that DNA is not the fixed static blueprint that the old model described, but something far more dynamic, far more responsive, far more capable of change than the textbooks have yet fully incorporated. The science is catching up to what the soul has always known. And what the soul has always known is this: the body listens. It listens to everything, to the thoughts that move through the mind with the casual frequency of weather, not just the deliberate ones, not just the consciously chosen ones, but the habitual ones, the inherited ones, the ones that run beneath the surface of conscious awareness, like underground rivers shaping the landscape above them without ever being seen. It listens to emotion, not as a psychological experience happening separately from the body, but as a biochemical event that rewrites the body's internal chemistry with every wave of feeling that moves through it. It listens to the people and spaces and environments it moves through, registering the energetic quality of everything it encounters with a sensitivity that makes the most sophisticated measuring instrument look crude by comparison. And it listens to something even larger than all of these, to the field, the vast, living, intelligent field of consciousness that surrounds and permeates the physical world, that is not separate from matter, but is, at the most fundamental level, what matter is made of. The field that the ancient traditions described in the language of their time, and that the most advanced edges of modern physics are beginning to describe in the language of ours, the field that is shifting right now in ways that every sensitive body on this planet is registering, whether the mind that inhabits it has a framework for what it is feeling or not. Long before this body was born, before the specific biological instrument of this incarnation was assembled with the extraordinary care that the deepest accounts of pre-birth consciousness describe, the soul understood something about the physical vehicle it was choosing, that it would need to be capable of more than ordinary human biology had previously been asked to hold, that the frequency it would be asked to carry, the level of consciousness it was agreeing to embody, would require a physical instrument capable of handling a vibrational load that earlier iterations of the human form were not designed for. And so the body was chosen accordingly, not randomly, not assigned by the blind processes of genetics alone, though genetics is part of the story, the outermost layer of a much deeper design, chosen, prepared, equipped at the most fundamental level of its physical architecture with the capacity, latent, waiting, activated by exactly the conditions of exactly this era, to undergo the transformation the mission requires. The DNA was not simply inherited, it was selected for this. The accounts that emerged from the deepest levels of human consciousness, accessed through the kind of hypnotic regression that takes ordinary people past the personality and into the vast knowing that underlies all of it, describe this with a specificity that the researchers who recorded them found both astonishing and consistent. They describe the physical body as a technology, not in the cold mechanical sense, but in the sense of a deliberately engineered instrument designed to specifications that go far beyond what biology alone can account for, designed to be capable of processing frequencies of consciousness that would, in a less prepared instrument, be overwhelming, designed to upgrade, not metaphorically, not as a spiritual aspiration, as a literal biological process coded into the DNA itself, waiting for the precise environmental trigger that would activate it. And the trigger is the shift in the Earth's own frequency, which is happening now, which your body is already responding to, which is why you have been feeling what you have been feeling. The symptoms that have been confusing you, the heightened sensitivity, the processing that seems to happen in the body before the mind has caught up, the waves of emotion that seem larger than their apparent cause, the physical responses to energetic environments that the people around you do not seem to share with the same intensity, the exhaustion that comes not from doing too much but from being too much, from carrying a frequency that the old cellular structure was not yet optimized to hold without effort. These are not signs of fragility. They are signs of a body in active transformation, a body doing exactly what it was designed at the deepest level of its biological and spiritual architecture to do, in exactly the right season, for exactly the right reasons. Tonight, before sleep, place both hands flat on your abdomen. Feel the warmth beneath your palms, and simply breathe slowly, intentionally, sending the breath all the way down into the space your hands are resting over. And with each exhale, release this quietly into your own body. Thank you for what you are doing. I see you. I honor the process. I am not fighting the transformation. I am receiving it, not as a performance, as a genuine acknowledgement between your conscious mind and the extraordinary biological intelligence working below the level of your awareness. The body responds to being witnessed, to being thanked rather than worried about, to being treated as the sophisticated, purposeful, magnificently designed instrument it is, rather than the problem it has been mistaken for. What science almost understood, and is increasingly courageously moving toward, is what the soul has known since before it entered this body, that the human being is not finished, that what we currently are is not the ceiling of what we are capable of becoming, that the DNA contains not just the record of what has been, but the blueprint of what is possible. And that blueprint is being activated right now in you. Nobody prepared you for this. There was no manual handed to you at the beginning of this season of your life explaining what was coming. No map of the territory you would be moving through, no clear, honest, compassionate description of what it actually feels like from the inside when a human body begins the process of recalibrating to a frequency it has never before been asked to hold in a single lifetime. And so you have been navigating it largely alone, making sense of experiences that the conventional world around you has no category for, managing symptoms that the medical framework reaches for ordinary explanations to describe, moving through waves of intensity that come without warning and depart without clear cause, leaving you simultaneously exhausted and more alive than you have ever felt, wondering if you are falling apart, when actually you are coming together. At a level so fundamental, so essential, so far beneath the surface of what the conscious mind can directly observe that the process can only be felt, not explained, not managed, not rushed, felt. The upgrade does not feel like improvement, not in the way the word improvement usually means, the clean, linear, progressive movement from a lesser state to a better one that the self-development world promises and the human mind prefers. It feels more like weather, like the particular quality of pressure and electricity that fills the air before a storm that has been building for a long time finally breaks. The atmosphere changes before the rain arrives, the birds go quiet, the light shifts to something golden and strange. Everything in the natural world registering a change that is not yet fully visible, but is completely, undeniably real. Your body is the atmosphere, and what you have been feeling, the pressure, the electricity, the golden strangeness, is the body registering a change that is not yet fully visible, but is completely, undeniably underway. The sensitivity arrives first. For most souls undergoing this process, the initial experience is one of amplification. Everything becomes more intense, more immediate, more physically felt in the body rather than processed, at a safe intellectual distance. Emotions that were once manageable arrive with a force that seems disproportionate to their apparent cause. The energy of spaces and people and conversations registers in the body before the mind has time to interpret it, a physical knowing that precedes understanding. Things that were once tolerable, certain foods, certain environments, certain qualities of interaction, become increasingly difficult to be around without a physical response that the body generates, whether or not the conscious self has given it permission. This is not fragility developing, this is sensitivity increasing, and sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is the instrument becoming more precise. Then comes the processing. Deep, often inexplicable waves of emotion moving through the body, with the quality of something being released rather than something being generated. Grief that does not seem to belong to any current circumstance. Fear that has no present object. Joy so sudden and so complete it briefly overwhelms the ordinary functioning of the day. The body releasing what the old frequency required it to store. Because the new frequency cannot be fully received, in a vessel that is still holding the accumulated weight of everything the density required. The processing is clearing, not comfortable clearing, not the tidy, controlled kind that the spiritual self-improvement world tends to promise, the real kind, the messy, non-linear, sometimes disorienting kind that genuine transformation actually involves. And every wave of it, however unwelcome in the moment, is moving something through that was always meant to move, making space for what is coming. Long before this body was born, before the specific physical instrument of this incarnation was prepared for exactly this season of exactly this life, the soul understood that the upgrade would not be painless, not because transformation requires suffering by design, but because the distance between what the old frequency held and what the new frequency requires is significant, and moving that distance in a single human lifetime, within a single physical body, within a single continuous biological system, creates a friction, a holy friction, the friction of matter reorganizing itself around a new center of gravity, the friction of cells that have operated according to one set of instructions for decades beginning to respond to a different signal, the friction of a nervous system that learned to be braced finally, gradually, in the fits and starts that genuine neurological change actually involves, learning to be open. This friction is not failure. It is the sound of the upgrade happening. Close your eyes for a moment and bring your awareness, gently, without judgment, to whatever part of your body is currently carrying the most sensation, the most tension, the most persistent signal that something is happening there. Do not try to fix it. Do not try to explain it. Do not reach immediately for the mental narrative that would make it mean something manageable. Simply place your attention there. Breathe into it. And with the breath, with each slow, intentional exhale, offer this to that part of your body. I am here. I am listening. Whatever you are processing, you have my permission to continue. I am not against you. I am with you. We are doing this together. Feel what shifts when the body is met with presence rather than resistance. Because the upgrade does not accelerate when you fight it. It accelerates when you receive it, when the conscious self stops treating the symptoms as problems to be solved and starts treating them as communications to be honored from a biological intelligence that knows exactly what it is doing, even when the mind does not. The sleep changes too. For many souls in this process, the nights become their own kind of work, dreams more vivid, more coherent, more clearly arriving from somewhere that is not simply the subconscious processing the day's events, but from the deeper levels of consciousness that are most accessible when the waking mind finally releases its grip. Downloads arriving in the night, understandings present in the body upon waking that were not there the night before, not as thoughts exactly, not yet fully formed into language, but as a quality of knowing that settles in the chest and says quietly, certainly, something has shifted, something is different, something that was not yet possible yesterday is possible now. This is what the upgrade actually feels like, not the clean, triumphant, suddenly everything makes sense version that the spiritual content world tends to promise. The real version, messy, non-linear, deeply physical, sometimes frightening to a mind that does not have the framework for what the body is doing, and simultaneously, undeniably, unmistakably, profoundly real, the most real thing that has ever happened in your body. Because it is the body finally, fully, at the level that matters most, becoming what it came here to be. There is a difference between enduring a transformation and participating in one. The body undergoing the upgrade does not need you to simply white-knuckle through it, does not need the gritted teeth determination of someone surviving an experience they do not understand, does not need the particular brand of spiritual stoicism that treats discomfort as something to be transcended rather than something to be moved through with intelligence and care. It needs something far simpler and far more radical: your cooperation, not in the sense of doing more, not adding another practice to an already full life, not performing wellness in the ways the world offers as substitutes for genuine attunement to what the body is actually communicating. Cooperation in the most fundamental sense: listening, adjusting, following what the body's own intelligence is clearly, persistently, increasingly urgently, communicating about what it needs in this specific season of its specific transformation, and trusting what you hear. The body in transformation speaks a language that the mind, trained for productivity and performance and the management of ordinary physical maintenance, does not always immediately recognize. It speaks in cravings that make no logical sense, in a sudden inexplicable need for stillness, in a life that has always been in motion, in the pull towards certain foods and away from others with a specificity that goes beyond preference into something that feels more like instruction, in the need for solitude that arrives not as antisocial tendency, but as genuine biological requirement, the body needing the absence of external energetic input in order to complete the internal processing it is engaged in the need for water, for earth, for the specific quality of restoration that only genuine contact with the natural world provides, not the aesthetic appreciation of nature, but the full, barefoot, unhurried, screen-free immersion in it that the body in upgrade recognizes as medicine. These are not indulgences. They are requirements, and the soul that treats them as requirements rather than luxuries, that gives the body what the body is asking for with the seriousness that a sophisticated biological transformation deserves, moves through the upgrade with a grace and an efficiency that white-knuckling never achieves. Long before this body descended into this life, before the specific physical instrument of this incarnation took its first breath in this world, the soul agreed to something that the upgrade makes more available than it has perhaps ever been in the history of this soul's long journey through incarnated experience: full presence in the physical body, not the partial presence of a soul that has learned to live primarily in its head, managing and monitoring and producing from the neck up, while the body below carries the unprocessed weight of everything the mind has not made space to feel. But genuine, complete, embodied presence. The soul fully landed in the physical instrument, fully inhabiting every cell, fully available to the extraordinary biological and spiritual intelligence that the body contains, and that the upgrade is specifically designed to make more accessible. The upgrade is not just a physical process. It is an invitation to inhabit the body in a way that most human beings in the density of the old frequency never fully managed. An invitation to come home fully into the physical. The earth itself is part of this, not as metaphor. As literal biological fact that the most sensitive bodies are already experiencing directly the connection between the Earth's own electromagnetic field and the human nervous system that is not a spiritual concept, but a measurable physical reality. The Earth is upgrading, and the body in its extraordinary sensitivity, in its magnificent biological responsiveness, is upgrading in concert, which means that the most practical, the most immediately effective, the most genuinely transformative thing available to a soul moving through this process is also the simplest. Get on the earth, literally, physically, barefoot on soil or grass or sand, the direct skin-to-earth contact that allows the body to synchronize with the planet's own electromagnetic frequency. That discharges what has accumulated. That restores what has been depleted. That provides the specific quality of biological recalibration that no supplement or practice conducted indoors can fully replicate. The earth knows what your body is going through, because the earth is going through it too. And the earth's frequency, rising, clarifying, becoming more coherent, is the very signal your DNA is responding to. Meeting it directly, physically, with the skin that is your body's most immediate interface with the world is not a spiritual practice. It is a biological necessity for a body in upgrade. Tonight, before you sleep, do something the busy modern life rarely allows. Slow down long enough to actually check in with your body. Not a cursory scan, a genuine, unhurried, fully present inquiry, moving your awareness slowly from the crown of your head downward, through the throat, through the chest, through the abdomen, through the legs, all the way to the soles of your feet. And at each place that responds, that offers a sensation, a tightness, a warmth, a signal of any kind, simply pause. Breathe into that place specifically. And ask, not with words necessarily, but with the quality of genuine attentive curiosity that the body responds to as care. What do you need right now? Not what should you need, not what the spiritual framework says you should be focusing on, not what the productivity mind thinks is the most efficient use of the remaining minutes before sleep. What does this specific part of this specific body actually need in this specific moment? And then listen with the same quality of respect you would bring to someone you love communicating something important, because that is exactly what is happening. The most sophisticated biological intelligence in the known universe, speaking directly to the conscious self that shares its life, about what it needs to complete the most extraordinary transformation it has ever been asked to undergo. The frequency of your thoughts matters more now than it ever has before, not as spiritual pressure, not as another way to perform awakening correctly or fail at it. As biological fact, the body in upgrade is more responsive than it has ever been, which means the thoughts that run through it, the emotional states it is asked to hold, the quality of the internal environment it is navigating the transformation within, matter at the cellular level in ways that the emerging science of how consciousness affects biology is beginning to confirm with a precision that would have seemed extraordinary only decades ago. The old habitual thought patterns, the inherited self-criticism, the anxious future scanning, the chronic low-grade narrative of not enough that the old frequency normalized, create a friction in the upgrade that compassion and presence do not. Not because you are doing the upgrade wrong when those patterns arise, but because the body doing the work of cellular transformation needs the same thing that any system doing intensive work needs, the most favorable internal environment possible. And the most favorable internal environment for a body in upgrade is not perfection, it is simply kindness toward the process, toward the symptoms, toward the self that is moving through something unprecedented with the imperfect, still becoming beautifully human grace of someone doing their absolute best in territory that has no complete map. That is cooperation. That is how you work with what is happening. There is a version of you on the other side of this, not a different person, not someone unrecognizable from who you are now, not the dramatic, total reinvention that the transformation mythology of the modern world tends to promise as the reward for sufficient suffering and sufficient work. The same you, but landed fully, completely, without the chronic friction of a soul trying to inhabit a body that is still calibrated to a frequency the soul has already moved beyond. Without the exhaustion of carrying a vibration in a physical instrument that was not yet optimized to hold it without effort, a body and a soul finally, completely vibrating at the same frequency as each other, and the same frequency as the earth they are moving through together, that coherence, that alignment between the soul's frequency and the body's capacity is what is being built right now, in the symptoms, in the processing, in the waves of intensity and the exhaustion and the sensitivity and the dreams and all the rest of the upgrade's unmistakable, undeniable, sometimes overwhelming signature. Every moment of it building toward this. Long before this body was born, before this specific physical instrument was chosen and prepared for this specific, extraordinary assignment, the soul understood something about the body it was selecting, that it would be asked to hold more than any previous version of itself had been asked to hold, that the frequency of this specific era, the elevation that the earth is undergoing, that the collective human consciousness is undergoing, that the entire system of which this one soul and this one body are a part is undergoing, would require a physical instrument capable of genuine transformation, not just adaptation, not just the incremental biological adjustment that ordinary evolution produces across generations. Something faster, something more deliberate, something that happens within a single lifetime, in a single body, in response to a shift so significant that waiting for it to occur across generations is not part of the design. The soul that chose this body chose it knowing this, knowing that it would be asked to transform from the inside out, knowing that the transformation would be felt in every cell, and knowing from the elevated perspective of the between-life realm where such agreements are made in full awareness, that the body chosen was capable of exactly this, not a version of this that was more comfortable or more convenient or better timed. This specific process in this specific season, in this specific imperfect, magnificently capable physical form. What is being built in you is not just personal. This is perhaps the most significant thing to understand about what the upgrade is actually for, and it requires a shift in perspective from the personal to the collective that the soul in the middle of the process does not always have the bandwidth to make. But it is true, and it matters. The body that is becoming, the physical instrument being recalibrated to hold the new frequency, is not being upgraded simply for the benefit of the individual soul inhabiting it, though it benefits that soul profoundly. It is being upgraded because the earth needs physical anchors, needs bodies that can hold the new frequency steadily, that can carry it into the spaces and relationships and ordinary daily interactions of a world that is in the process of shifting, and that is shifting in significant part through the bodies of the souls who chose to be here for exactly this. Every body completing its upgrade becomes a tuning fork, a living, breathing, walking point of coherence in a collective field that needs all the coherent points it can get. Every soul that comes through the process, that moves through the discomfort and the sensitivity and the processing and arrives at the other side of it, landed and clear and vibrating at the frequency the upgrade was designed to establish, makes it easier for the next soul to do the same. The field is not abstract. It is made of bodies like yours, doing exactly what yours is doing right now. Close your eyes and breathe slowly, deeply, until the body settles and the mind quiets, and the quality of attention that this transmission has been building toward is fully, completely present. And imagine, not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, but as the soul's genuine access to what the deepest levels of consciousness confirm is real, the version of you that exists on the other side of this process, not far away, closer than the mind's habit of placing transformation in a distant future allows. Feel the quality of their presence, the ease in the body, the absence of the chronic friction, the particular quality of aliveness that comes when the physical instrument is finally fully optimized to hold the frequency it was always carrying, without effort, without the constant management of an upgrade still in process. Feel how they hold their body, how they breathe, the quality of attention they bring to an ordinary moment, the fullness of it, the presence of it, the sense of being completely, peacefully, powerfully here. That is not a fantasy, that is your direction. And every moment of the upgrade you are currently moving through is a moment of becoming that. Not someday, incrementally. Actually, right now, the body knows what it is doing, even when the mind does not, even when the symptoms are confusing and the timeline is unclear, and the particular form the transformation is currently taking makes no obvious sense from within the experience of it. The body knows. It has been doing this work with extraordinary intelligence and extraordinary care, far below the level of conscious awareness in the cellular territory where the real transformation occurs, for longer than you perhaps realize. And it will complete what it has begun, not because transformation is guaranteed to be comfortable or convenient or completed on the schedule the impatient mind would prefer, but because the design is precise. The body chosen for this assignment was chosen specifically because it was capable of seeing it through, and the soul inhabiting it, the one that agreed to this from the full awareness of what it was agreeing to, is not separate from the body's capacity. The soul's agreement is part of what makes the body's transformation possible. You are not a passenger in this process. You are the process, body and soul together. The physical and the non-physical dimensions of a single extraordinary being doing the most extraordinary thing that has been asked of the human form in the long history of souls choosing to move through it, upgrading in real time, in the full, embodied, sometimes difficult, always meaningful, profoundly purposeful experience of a life lived at the exact intersection of the old frequency and the new. You did not find this transmission by accident. The body that brought you here, that has been doing its quiet, extraordinary work through every symptom you have been confused by and every wave of intensity you have moved through, knew what it needed, and it led you here, to this, to now, to the understanding that what has been happening in your physical form is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be honored. If this channel has become a space where the body's experience is finally given the language it deserves, where what you have been feeling is met with recognition rather than confusion, then stay. Not as a subscriber, as a soul choosing consciously and deliberately to continue receiving what this channel carries. Every transmission here is another frequency, another layer of understanding, another gentle, powerful confirmation that what is happening in you is real, is purposeful, is part of something far larger than any single body or any single life. The body you are becoming is not a distant destination. It is what you already are, arriving, cell by cell, breath by breath, wave by wave of upgrade, moving through the friction toward the coherence, toward the version of you that the soul chose this body to become. You are already that, in the process of fully arriving. Trust the body, trust the process, trust what is becoming.